News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset, y'all. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Well, check this out. If you have an EV, you might be in trouble. If you don't have an EV but are thinking about getting one, I'm going to really caution you. I am not a fan at all. If you listen to this show with regularity, I would never buy one, and I never want to buy one because they can be shut down, and or they could box you in a certain area, not let you go out of a certain area if they want to, where your car stops working or your car is inoperable if you leave that area. There are too many ways that our government, or God forbid some other government, like Chinese Communist Party, there was one story I saw that they were hacking into EVs through the software. I don't want the ability for our government to control where I go, when I go, and how I go. And I do not want to be dependent on a grid that, whether it be Texas or many other states in the Northeast, Illinois, or California, is constantly having issues with blackouts and brownouts, and rolling blackouts. When those happen, they tell you don't charge your EV. This is the worst. This is the worst way if you value your freedom to live your life. It is also a tremendous inconvenience in your life. And I'll get into more on that too. But first, I want to do this. This is from the car dealership guy, and I'll pull him up to kind of give you a little more info on him. But dealership guy. He wrote a piece talking about electric vehicles being underwater. There's a lot of them underwater. In fact, 31% of owners in America, this is for the third quarter. All right. This guy is, it's called Your Cheat Sheet to the Car Industry, and they got almost 500,000 followers, so they must know what they're doing. Here's what they wrote. Some car buyers are in for a nasty surprise. On the surface, things seem to be pretty good. Car prices are coming down, incentives are going up. But under the surface, there is a growing problem. Negative equity. According to a third quarter study, a Q3, third quarter survey, not study, but survey, 31% of owners now owe more on their car loan than the car is worth. 1 out of 3 owners in America that have a car loan are underwater. 1 in 3. And with 61% of consumers overestimating the value of their car, some of them probably don't even realize it. So you yourself may think your car is worth, let's say, 15 grand, but it might only be worth 11 or 10 or 9. The cars I have are amazing, 6-cylinder SUVs. And they got the 3 rows. So we love them. I mean, we got that. And the first one we got it because it was like, let's do this instead of a minivan, because we had a minivan before that, which we loved. But the kids are older. And now we like that one so much. My wife wanted a minivan, but the place where we usually go to get them didn't have a minivan in stock. And so I said, do you guys still have another one of those? She goes, yeah. I said, do you mind that? She goes, nope. So we got 2. One's a 2017, one's a 2014. And the greatest cars ever. My mechanic loves them. So you're looking up the value sometimes. I'm like, oh, it's only worth that now? But it's worth a lot more. Mine's a Japanese car. It's worth a lot more than an American car. And I'm going to give you a little hint. Don't buy Nissan. A lot of bad stuff with them now. They have gone the wrong way, apparently, with a lot of their stuff, from what I've been reading. But I don't have Nissan. I used to do that, but not anymore. A long time ago. Okay, so 61% overestimate the value of their car. Some don't even realize they're underwater. But there's one group struggling particularly badly in this issue. EV owners. 46% of EVs are underwater this quarter alone. Basically, half of all electric vehicles are underwater. You owe more than it's worth. I repeat, almost half of every EV that has a loan on the car, the loan is worth more than the car. EVs are depreciating much faster, the car dealership guy reports, much faster compared to other brands. The bottom line, some tough conversations are waiting around the corner for many dealers and car buyers. And why are EVs depreciating much faster? Because I believe, this is my theory, I'm not the car guy here, but my belief is because people don't want them as much anymore. They don't want them. I would not buy one. I will never buy one. I do not want one, and you cannot force me to buy one. I will have my car and keep putting money into it to keep it going at 300, 400,000 miles before I will ever, ever buy an EV. And guess what else you come to find out? Well, let me ask you some questions first. Why do you think so many Americans are underwater on their car loans? Whether it's an EV or not, why do you think so many Americans are underwater on their car loans? And will you still get an EV after seeing how many of these underwater loans are on EVs? Almost half of them? I mean, can you afford to buy a car knowing that it's going to depreciate faster than the loan? I mean, dude. This is why most of us don't buy new. Unless it's that one time you're like, I'm going to break the rule this one time because I'm doing well, etc., which is fine. God bless you. Because you lose so much money driving them off the lot. But EVs are worse. That's pretty shocking. I didn't know that, but now I do. And it makes sense. Here, I'll tell you why. By the way, numbers, phones are wide open. Chime in right now. 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Why do you think so many Americans are underwater on their car loans? And will you still get an EV after seeing how many of these underwater loans are on EVs? Like half of them all are underwater. That's crazy. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. My belief why so many people are underwater is because they overpaid for the car or they got a bad car. Like they shouldn't have bought the brand and the model number. If you're underwater, tell me what's going on, why you're underwater. And if you know somebody who is, or you know why this is going on, or you see things where you're like, these people are not getting this, call in, share that too. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. I think the reason why EVs, half of them are underwater is because people don't want to buy them anymore. I've been keep reading reports. They're sitting on the lots for a long time. Dealerships are starting to say, we don't want these. They're telling the factories we don't want them. And there's been some mega plants that have been shut down. Stellantis was this big government contract trying to force them to do EVs. They laid off thousands of people because they weren't selling. People don't want them. They're sitting on lots for a month or two, just sitting there. Nobody wants them. And the other big thing, here's the huge thing, the battery. People have no idea that battery is most likely going to be dead in 5 years. And that battery cannot be recharged. It cannot be redone. It has to be buried in the ground with all those heavy metals and those leaching compounds possibly that could go into our groundwater, God knows what, I don't know. But and then you got to buy a whole new battery. A Nissan Leaf, some parents bought a 2014 or 2016, or I don't know what it was, a Nissan Leaf in Florida, because that was their daughter's car for college. It was used, and within 6 months, the battery went dead, and they had to spend $11,000 on $14,000. No. They paid $14 for the car. The battery was $11. So they literally spent $14 for the car. Daughter gets an EV, and then 6 months or a year later, they're spending $11,000 on the battery, something like that. It's almost the exact value of the car. It's pathetic. I would never buy that. There was a guy who had a Tesla. Reportedly, it was one of the ones that was worth $100,000, one of the real nice coupes or something. I don't know. And the battery died, and he said he was really mad because he kept doing regular service at the Tesla dealership, and they never told him his battery was getting less and less capable. And then one day it just died, and Tesla, he's trying to sell the car, and Tesla locked him out of the car because they would not let him sell that car unless he bought a new battery for $25,000 on a $100,000 vehicle, I believe. I believe those were the numbers. $25,000. He's like, I'm not paying $25,000 for a battery for this car. And so they refused to unlock the car. They locked him out of his own car. See what I'm saying? You can't do this with a gasoline-powered vehicle. So he said he figured out a way to break into the car somehow or get into the car, and he got his glove box. He went to his glove box, and he got what he needed to sell the car, and he sold it. It's insane, dude. Never would I give anybody control over my car like that. Never. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. I've got a little story here about if this is a great little column written in the Wall Street Journal. It was written the other day, and it's, if green energy is the future, bring a fire extinguisher. I'll tell you all about that coming up next on the Chris Kroc Show. And then Israel begins a ground war in Lebanon. They are doing what they're called, as of right now, it's being called a limited ground war. And Joe Biden told him not to do it, and they told him that what he wants is a ceasefire now. It is unbelievable how Biden and Harris are putting the genital cuffs on Israel and are treating them worse than they're treating the terrorists. We'll get into that as well coming up next on the Chris Kroc Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset, y'all. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. We're talking about EVs. Why do you think so many Americans and cars that are underwater? Why do you think so many Americans are underwater on their car loans? 31%, almost 1 out of 3 car loans are underwater, and half of all EV loans are underwater. Half. So why do you think so many are underwater on their car loans, here in America? And will you still get an EV after seeing how many of these underwater loans are on EVs? Anthony in Weatherford, WBAP, what do you got?
Hey, Chris, thanks for having me on, man. Let me first start and say I've only caught your show about a half a dozen times, and I do appreciate your format and our similar thoughts, so keep it up, man.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
So, as far as these electric vehicles go, hell no, I don't trust. Oh, I can't say that. You could say
that's fine.
Okay, I'm sorry. But no way would I trust them. I bought 2 vehicles in 2017. Although I like driving the new, they had too much electronics for me. They had too much Big Brother reporting. Now we find out that the Sirius and was that the Chevy network that they do. I can't recall what it is, but because I had Fords. But anyway, so no, I don't trust them, and I would never buy an EV. Right now, I own a 2003 Explorer that still has a cassette deck.
Wow.
I mean, there's no electric. There's no.
How many miles?
I have 178,000.
Wow. That's actually, those are low mileage. That's very low mileage. That's actually very, very, very low mileage.
For a 23-year-old vehicle. For a 23-year-old vehicle, yes, sir.
Is that the only car you have?
Well, I have a company vehicle I drive that,
Okay.
Sitting in right now. But as a personal vehicle,
I see.
That's the only vehicle I have at the moment.
Wow. Well, good for you.
Love it. And I just took a trip to Michigan and Ohio to see my grandkids and my mom, and so I just got back in it and had nothing problems but tires, and that's my fault.
That's amazing, dude. That is amazing.
Yeah, it's a good truck. I like it.
That's great stuff. Thanks for your call, man.
Hey, good to listen to you. Thank you for keeping it up.
Thank you, Anthony. Appreciate you. 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. What do you think here? Why do you think so many Americans are underwater on their car loans, and especially EVs? Half of all EVs are underwater. Will you still get an EV after seeing how many of these cars EVs are underwater on their loans? 800-288-WBAP is our number. Look at the EV fires. This is from an editorial in the Wall Street Journal about 5 days ago. Lithium battery fires are breaking out on highways, factories, home garages, storage rooms. They catch fire, they burn with high heat, and can even blow up. That's why airlines prohibit lithium batteries in checked baggage. Hey, Kelly in Phoenix, WBAP. Thanks for listening. Hello.
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 So what's your question? What's your questions about the EVs? There's pros and cons, but would
you still get one after seeing how many of these are underwater, half of all EVs?
Yeah, I'd be the guy that bought it at half price. Absolutely, just like you bought your vehicles at half price.
Well, I didn't buy mine at half price, but...
well, you know what I'm saying. I bought 2 new ones, and you're right. but I put a little money down, so I broke even.
Yeah.
But there is some advantages to the EVs and disadvantages. The secret is it doesn't need to be your primary vehicle.
That's exactly what people. That's why most people will not have one, because they can't.
Don't buy a 50. That's right.
They're not going to have two cars. Most people only have one per person, and they can't afford that.
Well, I don't know. I think the EVs are going to get so cheap. I think people are going to buy it as a second vehicle for around town to do groceries in and keep their SUV to do the long road trips to see grandma. So that's the way I do it. I'm driving a hybrid pickup right now, and I have two EVs. I have a Volkswagen, and I have a Ford Transit van, and it only has a 160-mile range, and I drove it from Pennsylvania to Phoenix. Now, that was a challenge.
How many hours did you have to spend on the road, sitting there on the side of the road charging?
An extra 12. Took me all week.
What would the drive be? What would the drive be if you went straight through?
It would have been 15 hours less. It would have been 3 days, 4 days instead of 6.
So it doubled your trip, and I mean that's an example.
It didn't quite double it. It added an extra day.
Do you think most people can afford
to do a little rest and stretch your legs, though?
Do you think most people can afford to spend an extra 12 hours sitting on the side of the road so they can drive an EV across country?
No, but I tell you what, the most of the charging, the secret is. January, Kia is going to let you access the Tesla network. And if I didn't have a Ford, I would have never been able to make it because I charged half on Tesla and half on Electrify America.
Let me ask you this.
And if you... Mm-hmm. Yep.
Have you had to replace a battery yet in your cars?
No, and that's another thing. That's a good. You're making some good points. When you go in and buy an EV at a dealer, the dealer don't know much about an EV because they don't sell EVs that much. They sell it to you to make the profit and get that $7,500 tax credit from the government. And that's why EVs are so expensive, is because they gave you $7,500 of free money and they raised all the car prices $7,500.
That's exactly right.
When that went away, and then when that went away, all of a sudden the car dropped $8,000.
You know what else though?
So
that's right. But then the other problem is. The battery, I mean, the Nissan Leaf that was, I think they paid $14,000 for it. The battery was $11,000.
Yeah, but that
Tesla, the car that's worth $100,000. The battery is $25,000. I mean, this is stunning. This is literally we would never spend that kind of money on a regular car.
Well, let me tell you, have you priced a new engine on a new car nowadays? The new engines nowadays are expensive.
Well, it depends on which.
The EcoBoost in a Ford is $30,000.
I have never had to replace an engine on my car, and I've been driving for I don't know, man, 34 years.
Yeah, that's true. It's all depending on how you drive it. But let me tell you, if you're considering an EV, whatever they tell you in the dealership, it's got 320-mile range. Take 40% off it.
That's exactly right.
The trick, don't go with this.
I got to roll.
55 mile an hour.
I got to roll, but I appreciate your call. Yeah, you lose 40% when it's hot, 40% when it's cold. No thank you in every single way possible. Plus the fires. I didn't even get in all the fires. We'll get to that another time. I want to get into Israel beginning a ground war after assassinating, I should say, all of Hezbollah's leadership, and Biden is ordering Israel to stand down and stop the raids. This is insanity what he's doing. Next. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset, y'all. 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. Well, y'all, this is quite a wild week for Israel and the Middle East. None of this would be happening if it wasn't for Joe Biden's actions. It was Joe Biden who first went way over his against every single one of his military advisors' suggestions to not abandon Afghanistan and to not leave Bagram Air Force Base. He literally disobeyed. They don't tell him orders, but he literally went against every single person that was his advisor that he chose as his advisors. Every one of them said, don't do this, and he did it anyway. Kamala was the last person in the room at the same time, too, and she said she was very proud of him, that he did the right thing, everything's awesome, and that's who Kamala and Joe are, and that's what they believe. Because of the unbelievable, shameful, disgraceful, embarrassing disaster because he chose to do it on the September 11th anniversary. He released every prisoner in Bagram, which was packed with ISIS and Al-Qaeda fighters, terrorists. He released them all, and 3 days later, one of the ISIS people he released would strap a bomb on himself and blow up 13 of our troops and wound dozens of our soldiers, taking off their foot, their leg, their arm, and he killed 142 Afghanis that day too. By allowing that terrorist he set them free so they could kill our soldiers. That's why they died. That's why the Abbey Gate compound had explosives at it, and that's who did it. Joe Biden did that. So that disaster. And he said he was so proud. He was proud of his excellent. There was no issues, and because of that, Russia saw Joe Biden, how he would lead, and his fecklessness, and that's when they said, Obama was feckless when Ukraine needed help when we were invading them under Obama. He sent them blankets. Obama sent the Ukrainians blankets. He wouldn't send them weapons. Putin knew he could go into Ukraine and take part of it under Obama because he knew Obama was like that. He knew he was feckless. Second of all, Trump comes in. Not one grain of Ukrainian dirt is taken for 4 years under the Trump administration. Not one death that I'm aware of, no combat for sure, and no grain of dirt taken from Ukraine for 4 years under Trump. Joe Biden comes in office, the Afghanistan failure, then Putin says, now's my time. He puts 70,000 troops around the border, and Biden says, that's Biden and Putin put together, Biden says a minor incursion would be okay in a public speech to the world. Russia says, well, we're going to do this anyways because of Afghanistan because you're not going to do anything. And then the minor incursion was permission, just don't go too much. Of course, that was the final green light for them to go in. They did, and they've taken more land and more war and killed a million people have died in that. A million casualties. And so on both sides. So this is because of Biden's fecklessness. This is where it leads you. And Biden, and if you continue with Kamala, this will be an endless war in Ukraine with stalemate, never anybody defeating anybody, and us spending hundreds of billions of dollars, tens of billions of dollars for aid to Ukraine and providing them ammo while we are running out of precious ammo and weaponry for America, for our own country, and while we are spending literally a sliver of that on our border. Our borders don't matter. Ukraine's do. Then, by Biden pushing China and Russia together in a way that for decades people have been warning they can never get together. They'll be too deadly and too dangerous. Two of the world's superpowers got together because of Joe Biden. He put them together. He pushed them together. They then began working with Iran. Joe Biden opened the spigot of oil for Iran. The last day Trump was in office, Iran was pumping 300,000 barrels of oil a day. Now, on day one, practically, Joe Biden opened up the spigot to 1.3 million barrels of oil. That's 3% of the world's oil. He added 1 million barrels of oil he let Iran pump. That's giving them some $80 billion to buy weapons and to train terrorists to go kill and attack the Jews and slaughter them for the worst day since the Holocaust on October 7th. That was paid for by Joe Biden with the Iranian oil he allowed them to pump, and that was done because of Joe Biden's fecklessness. That was the third axe to fall, or whatever you want to call it, a thing to sock to drop, or whatever they call it, to drop. And he's been feckless. The most disgusting thing happened today. Israel has done the most remarkable thing in the world. The pagers, they literally bought a pager company and sold them in a sweetheart way and got the deal from the terrorist in Lebanon, and then got the pager from the factory in Taiwan and put in the plastic explosives, PET or whatever it's called, and they then sent them in. They mailed them back to Palestine to Gaza, or not Gaza, but Lebanon from Taiwan or something of that nature, and that's how they did that in this remarkable thing. Also, they blew up the walkie-talkies the next day across with the terrorists, and then they also blew up the solar panels, which is why you don't want to get solar panels, among many reasons why. So in 6 weeks, Israel has eliminated on the United States most wanted terror list, Israel has eliminated on the U.S. wanted list of terrorists the same amount in 6 weeks that we have in the last 20 years. Israel has killed the same amount of terrorists on the U.S. most wanted terrorist list in 6 weeks, the same amount that we've done in 20 years. Do you hear that? That's what they've done with Hamas, with Hezbollah, and with the IRCG, Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. Let me play for you what Joe Biden said. I'm going to ask you a few questions on this, though. Do you blame war in the Middle East on Joe and Kamala or something else? I wholeheartedly blame war in the Middle East on Joe and Kamala. This never would be happening if Trump was in office. And who would you prefer to handle war in the Middle East? Because it's on. I'll give you details, but a ground invasion is going on. Limited ground invasion, supposedly, is what's going into southern Lebanon right now. They did a bunker buster to kill a multi-decade, 30, 40-year leader of Hezbollah. Hezbollah, this guy, Hassan Nasrallah, was killed with a bunker buster. He was in the basement of the terrorist headquarters with IRCG, Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, high-ranking officials. And Israel did a bunker buster. The hole went down 90 feet. You can see it on my Twitter feed, at Chris Croxo, ChrisKrok. We're talking in a city of Beirut, 90 feet below the building. That's how powerful these bunker busters are, and they killed that SOB. He killed Hassan Nasrallah, killed our 240 Marines, sailors, and Army people and civilians in the Beirut, Lebanon bombing, the barracks, our barracks, Marine barracks. Hassan Nasrallah. He and a couple of these leaders that were killed on the top terror watch list. One of the guys that they killed is on our terror watch list with a $7 million bounty on his head. We had a $7 million bounty on his head, and Israel took care of him. And what is Joe Biden saying? Are you ready for this?
The fact that Israel may be now launching a limited operation into Lebanon. Are you aware of that? Are you comfortable with their plan?
I'm more aware than you might know, and I'm comfortable with them stopping. We should have a ceasefire now. Thank you.
I repeat. 6 weeks, they've killed more of the same amount of people on a United States terror watch list with bounties on their heads. In 6 weeks, they've killed just as many as we have in 20 years. We should be thanking them and praising them. And this ignorant, feckless, horrible leader, leading by being afraid and publicly stating that he's afraid of going to war. He does not want war. He does not want conflict, while they run roughshod over him. And he tells them to stop killing our terrorists on the most wanted terror watch list. Not watch list, but the terror list. Can you believe this? All right, my questions for you. Will you still get, my questions for you are, do you blame war in the Middle East on Joe and Kamala or something else? Do you blame war in the Middle East on Joe and Kamala or something else? And who would you prefer to handle war in the Middle East and Ukraine, Kamala or Trump? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Do you blame war in the Middle East on Joe and Kamala or something else? And who do you prefer to handle war in the Middle East and Ukraine, Kamala or Trump? 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Wait till you hear this. Coming up next, this is going to just, if you really want to be disgusted, you're not going to believe this. The Financial Times had an exclusive today, and I will be sharing it with you in a second, but it is very bad about what Joe Biden did to Israel after October 7th. He told them not to do something that could have been a tremendous victory. He ordered them to stand down. I will tell you what it was that he ordered them to stand down on, and I think you're going to be shocked how bad this is. That is coming up next. I'm going to give you a few details on how the ground troops in Israel now invading in southern Lebanon and why this matters so much. Oh, by the way, guess what? Thousands of our troops were just deployed there today. Thousands. Several thousand of our troops were deployed in addition to the ones he deployed last week. This is getting real. This is a war, and we're involved. I want to say one last thing. Iran, when they had their first ever direct strike on Israel, I think in a long time, unleashing, I think, 300 missiles and bombs on them, or was it 3,000? I can't remember, that one night, right, one day. The United States of America was there with all of our warships in a couple different seas, Red Sea, Mediterranean Sea, and our warships, our carriers, our destroyers were firing Tomahawk missiles up. We were part of the defense because Israel was getting attacked from the north in Lebanon, from the east from Iran directly, and from the south from the Houthis on the south of what do you call it, Saudi Arabia. I'm going to tell you about that and how we shot down a ballistic. There were missiles shot at our warships just the other day in this. So this is as real as it gets, and we are totally involved in this. They shot scores of Tomahawk missiles and such to stop the invasion of the attack on Israel, because they cannot defend themselves singularly when they're getting attacked from four different major fronts, all funded and trained by Iran. Biden has given them $80 billion plus in oil revenue. And he's paying for all this. He's done it all for them. It's unreal. That's next. And he tells these people to stand down in Israel. That's next on the Chris Crock Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3 at 1048. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Do you blame war in the Middle East on Joe and Kamala or something else? And who do you prefer to handle the war in the Middle East and Ukraine, Kamala or Trump? News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset, y'all. 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. Watching the total disaster area in North Carolina, and I'll be playing this for you. If we have time, I might even play it for you here before the end of the segment. A woman in North Carolina calls out. She's on MSN or on NBC live, and she literally calls out Joe Biden and Kamala Harris live on television. The horror that her relatives are in one of the towns that's been wiped out. You're not going to believe what she says, and she calls out Joe Biden and Kamala Harris right in the middle of the interview. So we'll get into that. See if I have a moment to play that this segment. I wanted to get to this right away though. Joe Biden demanding that Israel stop its invasion of southern Lebanon, which it's doing right now, a limited ground strike, ground invasion. But guess what? Right after October 7th, Israel had Hassan Nasrallah, the guy in charge of Hezbollah, who killed 240 of our soldiers and Marines and sailors in the Marine bombing barracks bombing under in 82, 83. I think it was 83. Look at this, though. In recent months, if not years, this is from the Financial Times, Kim Strassel. In recent months, if not years, Israeli intelligence had nearly perfected a technique that allowed it to, at least intermittently, locate Nasrallah. That's the guy in charge of Hezbollah until he was blown up the other day. They could intermittently locate Hassan Nasrallah, who had been suspected of mostly living underground in a warren of tunnels and bunkers. In the days after October 7th, Israeli warplanes took off with instructions to bomb a location where Nasrallah had been located by Israel's intelligence directorate, Amman. The raid was called off after the White House, behind the scenes, demanded Netanyahu call off the hit on Nasrallah, according to one of the Israeli officials. On Friday, Israeli intelligence appears to have pinpointed his location again, heading into what the IDF called a command and control bunker, apparently to a meeting that included several senior Hezbollah leaders and a senior Iranian commander of the Revolutionary Guard Corps. This is the tip of the spear for Iran's proxy. This is what their pride and joy was. They're armed to the hilt. They have ballistic missiles that are incredibly accurate. And they have been taken out by Israel. And Joe Biden is mad, and he's demanding he doesn't finish the job. That's who he is, and that's who Kamala is. They are no friend of the Jews, and they are no friend of the Israelis. Let's see here. And this is from my buddy Eric Erickson today. Israel killed Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah Friday, dropping a bunker-busting bomb on his headquarters, the terrorist headquarters in southern Beirut. Over the weekend, Lebanon killed Hamas's top leader in Lebanon. 3 leaders from the terror group known as Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine. Nasrallah's interim replacement was also killed within a matter of hours and conducted the largest air assault on Yemen's Houthi rebels since the war began, because we won't do that, which we should be doing. Israel first planned to kill Hezbollah's Hassan Nasrallah shortly after October 7th. I shared that with you on that one. But I want to do this too. I want you to hear a woman. Yeah, I'm not going to have time for this then. We only have 20 seconds. Okay, there's a woman trapped in Spruce Pine, North Carolina for 4 days. And in the middle of this, she calls out Biden and Harris for doing nothing, being AWOL. And she says she doesn't. Many of us people in Charlotte don't even know where any of our loved ones are that live in the hills. They're all these towns are wiped off. We have no way of knowing if they're dead or alive, and no way of getting in touch with them. And it's been 4 days. She says we have no food, we have no water. I mean, this is insanity. This is going to unfold to a big disaster that could cost them the election. All right, 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227.